Hey everyone, welcome to the Random Redshirt Podcast. I'm Zach, one of the hosts, and our other host, as always, is Chris. How goes it, Chris?
Hey, Zach, great to be here again. Always great to have our audience all over the world and all over the interwebs. Thank you for joining us. We're going to have a fabulous day today.
We sure are. If this is your first time tuning in, be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. Unless you're watching us there, you probably have already figured out that we're on YouTube. But we are absolutely delighted to welcome back one of the Star Trek royalty members, in my opinion, Doug Drexler. We've had him on before. So if you have not listened to the first interview we had with him, please be sure to go back and tune in because there's so much great information in there. If you have listened to it, that's great. And welcome back. But if you haven't, Doug has been a makeup artist, a scenic artist, graphic designer, illustrator, and visual effects artist. He's worked on a million different things, especially Star Trek. He won his Academy Award for makeup in the 1990 movie Dick Tracy, which is absolutely amazing. And also worked on the Battlestar Galactica reboot, which is incredible. Caprica, Blood and Chrome, Defiance, The Orville, and one of the reasons why we're here today to talk about. And that's Star Trek Picard. So, Doug, welcome back to the Random Redshirt Podcast.
I'm so excited. Picard season 3, yes!
Yes, that's right. We are incredibly excited. We've already watched the first episode. I know you were at the premiere down in LA. So give us your thoughts coming out of this after you saw those first two episodes on the screen. What were your thoughts?
Well, first I have to say that I went to the premiere of Picard season 3 escorting Miss Barbara Luna. Now think about that.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, she was when I watched the original series in 1966, I watched the whole first season in black and white. That's, not everyone had a color TV, but Luna was my number one Star Trek crush. And now she's one of my best friends. And as a matter of fact, I got to say that with the nasty stuff that happened and my losing Dorothy, Luna looked after me. Imagine that. One of your heroes from a TV show you grew up on and idolized is looking after you and making sure you're okay. That's the Twilight Zone, Really. But anyway, yes, back to what we were talking about. I have to say, I will spin off and you just have to reel me back in.
That's okay, Doug. We just go with it. Go with it.
What was really amazing was like a motion picture opening. This wasn't like a screening for a TV show that I'd ever been to in my life. They blocked off part of Hollywood Boulevard. They had the entire Chinese theater with, press. And I mean, it was astonishing. And Terry Metalis, he's one smart guy. He made sure lots of fans had tickets to be able to go. And so there was like a line down the block of people in Starfleet uniforms. And I, sometimes you don't realize how much exposure you get on the internet, because I could not walk 10 feet without someone wanting to stop and take a selfie with me. Maybe they thought I was someone else. I don't know.
No, you're Doug Drexler. That's why they wanted a picture with you.
Yeah.
It was an amazing party in there because it was a lot of people. LeVar was there, Jonathan was there, Michael Dorn. I spent a lot of time with all of those guys because I was a makeup artist in the trailer. If you're in visual effects or you're in the art department, you see the actors here and there. If you're a makeup artist, you are literally part of their experience and living with them, and that kind of thing. They don't forget you. They still, so many things I've worked on. Like if I saw Bill Peterson, from CSI, who I worked with on Manhunter, I'm sure he wouldn't remember me. But when you live with people like that for years, you become ingrained. You become family. That's the one thing I got to say about TNG. That is, of all the casts I've ever worked with, that is really a family. They adore each other, and they have a lot of fun together. So there were all those people to see, and the fans mixed in with them who were having a ball because they're in the theater with all of their people they idolize. And Patrick got up and gave an impassioned speech to all the fans about what it means to him, and it was just absolutely awesome. I thought the show was amazing, and it captures a certain spirit that I at least I don't think I've seen in a while, as far as not just the tone, because you've got the characters. These people step right back into the characters. In fact, in many ways, they're even more fun than they were back in the 90s, because they've developed a whole life with each other over all these years. And the interplay is so easy and fun. So there's that. And then there's an aesthetic to, like, not everybody knows it, not everybody believes it, but the ships are really important. They're characters. People know their names, they know what their classes are. They love knowing that. They don't want a bunch of ships they've never seen before. They want the ships to be authentic. And when they get close to them, they want to know that there's a phaser strip, and there's a warp core egress hatch, and there's people who are into that sort of thing memorize it. Just like people who maybe they're not ship geeks, but they'll memorize everything about the history and where they've been and what happened on a certain day, and the accords and all that stuff. When you start, I have this theory that all of the new shows that are being done now are not all on the same timeline. We've got a multiverse going on here.
Yeah.
That Picard season 3 is the first show that directly connects to 90s Star Trek in early 2000.
Yeah.
It is the same universe, and you could count on it. And I mean, I don't think I've ever seen such terrific reactions to the starships as I did starting in season 2 when they first saw the Stargazer. The fans went ape over it because they looked at it like for the first time. They realized what it was like to not have authentic detailing for 20 years.
And you worked on the Stargazer, right? You worked.
Oh yeah, well, all the ships went through me. I mean, that's why Dave Glass wanted me on the show. Dave is amazing, and he was a production designer, and I love him more than words can tell. He's a fan. I was chatting with him on Facebook Messenger for like 2 months. I didn't know he was going to be the production designer. And we just had a great time talking as fans. And he showed me a picture of himself in a Starfleet uniform as a kid, And then when he told me, I was, what? I couldn't believe it. But the thing was that Dave really loves those shows. And he's not criticizing any of the new shows. He just wants to, get as much of that DNA into the show to connect it to the, next generation. So, you could go out and you could get a graphic designer. Lots of great graphic designers in the union. You get an illustrator, lots of great illustrators in the union. But there's a definite difference if that person has the DNA for the show. This is what I do.
Yeah.
There aren't that many graphic artists or illustrators who will say that about Star Trek. They might be a great illustrator, but it's like Star Trek's just another job.
Yeah.
I've absorbed this and known the people who made the old show, and it's what I do, and Dave knows that if he brings in just anybody, that they won't know the language. You've got to live it to know the language.
Yeah.
And so for him to have to explain what everything is, they're still not going to understand, it's so ingrained in me, or so ingrained in Mike Okuda, another good example. Mike lives it, he's, it makes all the difference in the world. So, and of course, the other thing is that Dave isn't autonomous. I mean, he still has a boss too. He's got Terry Metalis.
Yeah. And
if Terry is a producer who says, no, I don't want anyone from the other shows because we're going to make our own thing, then Dave can't hire me.
Right.
On some of the shows, it's actually a negative to know too much about Star Trek because they want to put their own spin on it. I totally get that, totally understand that, But so Terry, as you probably know, is an assistant on Voyager and Enterprise, an assistant. And he used to hang out in the art department because he thought we were the cool people on the show.
You guys were the cool people on the show, right?
Well, yeah. So to Terry, and he said numerous times, he said, it wouldn't be Star Trek without you guys.
Yeah.
That's true.
And I think we could all see what a difference that makes by the reaction of the fans. We've seen 20 years of fans with their knives out.
Yeah.
There's fans who love some of the other shows, but a lot of them are really angry. All of a sudden, this one show comes out and they're all digging it. So I hope that, see, my fondest wish is that they realize that Terry brought a certain, magical formula.
Yeah.
By bringing back the old timeline.
I think it's really interesting when you have showrunners and producers and people who are working on a show that are fans. It makes all the difference. I can kind of equate this in the world of Star Wars, right? Where Disney really screwed up the new Star Wars trilogy because they just brought in, J.J. Abrams is a big director, but you had this whole rigmarole with directors and stuff from that series, and then they bring in Dave Filoni and am I forgetting the other guy's name?
Yeah.
John Favreau. Geez, yeah. John Favreau to do Mandalorian, and Mandalorian's been one of the biggest Star Wars successes in the whole franchise. And you can see the difference, right? The attention to detail and everything else.
Favreau is a real talent, man.
Yeah.
I remember watching him as an actor years ago.
Yep.
And look at what he did for Marvel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was one of the spark plugs of Marvel. Now that he's gone, he did the job he did on Iron Man. I didn't care for the second one. I loved 1 and 3.
Yeah.
But his influence, it went across everything they were doing, And then you had other wonderful guys too, But yeah, Favreau, man, he's got, I don't know him, but he's from New York like I am, and he lived in Queens as a kid. And that's where the World's Fair was, the 1965 World's Fair. As a matter of fact, his company is called Fairview. There's a World's Fair. The World's Fair impacted him. As a matter of fact, I think that in the second Iron Man movie that Tony Stark has a model of that World's Fair that you see in the beginning of one of the movies.
Yep.
I
think it was in 2, wasn't it?
I think it was, because they had to relate to that model and stuff later on. That World's Fair, you don't see things like that anymore. You got TV and stuff, and no one needs to go to a World's Fair at this point to see new stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think you guys are, especially the people that are behind the scenes and that craft the ships and then provide the design for the shows. You have you build the culture, you build the world, and you build that for everyone to appreciate. And then if there's a difference, people immediately realize, say, hey, that doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel right. That doesn't fit in this world. So you guys are so incredibly important. And then when you see it connect, when you see it when it feels right, you're like, yes, it feels
it's
right.
magic.
Yeah.
Well, I think the first time I'd seen that kind of magic was the first shot of Stargazer in episode 1 of season 2. Now, I love the first 2 episodes. Going to Los Angeles and pretty close to contemporary times doesn't do it for me. I'm watching Star Trek. I want to see starships, and I thought that was a false start. I'm not sure why I don't understand. Anyway, I wasn't crazy about that, but the first 2 episodes, and they have that wonderful reveal of Stargazer. One of the things fans love, and I don't think that's happened a lot, and that Roddenberry always indulged, was having loving, shots of the ships, like the dry dock sequence in Star Trek: The Motion Picture, which it never fails. If I read some reviewer talking about it who isn't a fan, just a reviewer, they always rip the shit out of that sequence.
Yep.
Calling it, self-indulgent and lethargic. And I'm thinking, man, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. I pay the whole amount just to see that sequence.
Yeah.
I even need to see the rest of the movie. So what I'm getting at is that if you don't know, you don't know. And there's people who never know. I found that the overwhelming majority of reviews for Picard season 3 are like really excited. But there were a couple that came out early on before any of the others that pretty much ripped the hell out of it, But you get people who, listen, you're going to get a reviewer who feels left out. I don't understand. I don't get it. And so there's a little bit of, animosity, and
Yeah.
they've been saving up pithy comments, to make about it, that they just want to sound clever. It's more about sounding clever for some reviewers than actually giving you an honest review,
Yeah, we just did our review for the first episode of Picard season 3 a few days ago, and it really knocked our socks off. I'll be honest, I wasn't the biggest fan of the first 2 seasons of Picard.
Me neither.
It didn't feel like, we just been talking about, it didn't feel like Trek as much. And this first episode of season 3 to me feels like a home run.
It does. It's an entirely new show. It's
Yeah.
an entirely new show with some characters from the first 2 seasons. I think season 1 and 2 are really interesting if you want to take the time to look at Picard as a complete fish out of water, no starship, no crew, just wrestling with what life is about. That's what that was about. And it's really, I want to see that type of stuff about these characters that we love. I know that when you're dealing with a show that has such a amazing cultural footprint and so many people love it, you're going to get people who are going to hate that. It doesn't, I don't care. There's usually the rule is that no matter what you do, half the people are going to love it and half the people are going to hate it. That's what's so unusual about season 3. It was like when they first saw Stargazer, the overwhelming number of people were loving the ship. The overwhelming number of people are loving season 3 Picard. That is supernatural anomaly that happens. So there's some real magic going on there. And I'm here to tell you that the show gets better.
Oh, nice.
Oh
yeah, because you've seen episode 2. I know we don't want any spoilers, but yeah, you've seen episode 2, and so the next little blip in the story.
Oh yeah, and listen, whatever surprises and fun there was in the first one, they're in the second one too. Some stuff that'll make you jump out of your chair, probably,
nice.
Possibly. I don't want to say what it is, but what those things are. Terry did an amazing thing. I mean, I'm indebted to him. The crazy thing about this is that it really is Next Generation coming full circle, especially by having the Stargazer really brings it full circle. But it's been a full circle journey behind the camera too. I mean, you've got me, and you got Mike, and you got Denise, and you got John Eves, and Terry at the wheel, and Dave Blass is getting his dream come true. He says, I always wanted to work on Star Trek, but I wanted to work with you guys on Star Trek because he grew up reading about us in the art department, and of course it really is a family. It's rare to be on a show where everyone really does become family. I mean, the Okudas are among my closest friends for over 30 years because of Star Trek, and among others on the show are my dear, dear closest friends. I saw John Eves at the premiere, and I ran into him by accident. I didn't know he was going to be there. I thought he lived in like Utah or something like that. But to see him is like seeing a loved one. In some ways, much more family than your own family. The family that you adopt as your life is spinning along, not the ones that were an accident of birth. So when you run into, it's simply amazing though how this reaches across so many generations, right back to the Saturday night. I went to dinner with Barbara Luna and Sean Kenny, who was a helmsman on the old show and was the burned Captain Pike.
Yep.
And come on, who else was there? Oh yeah. Tanya Lamani, the belly dancer and Wolf of the Fall.
Yeah.
Yep.
She was there, and we just had a wonderful time. And there's something about people once they've worked on the show, they feel that magnetic attraction of family that imbues the whole thing. It's I have a love affair with those people, and right through everything I've worked on, it's uncanny. I have to say that there was something about the original casting that was, Bob Justman was always very involved with that, and then the casting of Next Generation, where they cast people who had a real charm and who really liked each other. Well, we know in the original series some of that stuff has hit the rocks.
Yeah.
George Takei embarrassing himself online and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, shut up. Well, it's like he's made kind of a little business out of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great attention getter.
Yes.
And ultimately, it's show business too. So if he's going to make something out of it that's larger than life, well, why not? I guess. I don't think I would do it that way, but
Yeah.
George, in the early days of conventions and stuff, I mean, I considered him to be the nicest one of all of them. He never had a bad word to say about anyone. Then something happened somewhere along the line. Whereas, maybe he made some comment about Shatner and got a lot of hits.
It
Oh,
could have been.
hey, I got something here.
Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah, could be. George, stop it. I'm embarrassed.
the feeling that you have with the reunion of everyone that you've been working for, does that make it feel, in terms of creating the new design for Picard and whatever you guys create from there, is it like a launching point? Is it so much easier to go in, and does it make creating the new things like better? Is it easier, that process?
I guess so.
Yeah.
I guess so. Because I can remember, Nerves when I was working on the 90s shows, the early 2000s. Because, when you are, I had been in the business for a while, but I came onto Star Trek at about my 11th or 12th year of being in the business. Then you're trying to prove that you could do it, and you don't want to let anybody down. Michael Kuda put himself on the line for me, and and Herman's waiting to see if so there was that kind of attention. But now I'm like I was 40 years in the business, at the point where Picard happened. And there's so much has happened over the years that I don't feel like I have to prove anything. I feel like at this point, it's okay to believe that I know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Which is liberating.
Yeah.
Well, you've definitely proved yourself over the years, I think. To this point, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, at this point, even I'd have no doubt. I was the greatest doubter of myself, but it's like, hell yeah, of course. It's what I do. It's in my DNA. I have a right to think I know what I'm talking about. I've got the bling to prove it.
You do. Yeah. The Academy thought you were doing something right. So,
we got a couple of Emmys too. And I
Yeah.
think we're nominated at least 5 times for BSG.
Yep.
That was
Battlestar Galactica was incredible.
an amazing show. And the thing about that was that I really adored Gary Hutzel. And we had so much fun. He's a guy who likes to laugh, and I do too, And so he could always come to us to make a model of something for him. And then when he did Enterprise, he ended up going to Galactica. And I remember seeing Galactica thinking, wow, Gary has taken something that was getting kind of creaky, ship flies from left to right, and turns it into, this amazing, fresh, which actually his inspiration came from watching the DP on stage, Steve McNutt. That kind of loosey-goosey documentary style, that the camera is motivated by things on stage. Usually in a Hollywood show, the camera is the eye of God, and it tells you where to go. And it's, but on Galactica, the camera would be looking at this and kind of wobbling around a little bit. Something explodes over here behind it, and the camera whips over and then does a snap zoom into it. And that's a camera that it's a documentary style of shooting, which
Interesting.
was really the only thing I could ever think of that was anything like that made me feel like it was a documentary was the original Thing with James Arness as a Thing in 1950. I don't remember what year it was. John Carpenter based his movie on it. The saucer crashes in the Arctic and they find it and they get the creature inside out in a block of ice and it gets out and runs amok, and it's like, using everyone's blood to feed its seedlings. But watch that movie. It's an amazing movie. Still an amazing movie. But there's a sense about it that it's a documentary. They don't do any of these. You don't get any close-ups. It's all like the camera guy's out here. It's like there's somebody there who's actually in the environment. He can't get up to them like this because they're in a deadly situation. that 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 gave it a feeling. Oh, also overlapping dialogue. Overlapping dialogue was really unusual in those days, and that's one of the first places I saw it. I mean, you really started seeing it in the '70s with the MASH movie and stuff like that, where people would be stepping on each other's lines. It gives it a sense of reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I told you I was going to blather.
No, so that's interesting. Chris and I have actually talked about the unique camera style and shooting for Battlestar Galactica, the reboot. I have noticed, and I'm sure you have too, Doug, that they've taken some of that kind of documentary style and some of the modern stuff, even with like action movies and stuff, how the camera is following around and whipping here and whipping there, versus the static, like things come across the screen.
Yeah, well, I mean, Galactica was not the first to do that, but I think it definitely had an influence. As a matter of fact,
Yeah.
I know that J.J. Abrams was influenced by it in the first J.J. movie. And I could see in the battles that some of it was, very much BSG. And I talked to David Icke, one of the producers on Galactica, and he said that he had seen JJ like a week ago, and JJ told him that he had seen that kind of style. It inspired him to use it, in Star Trek. I don't think it really works with Star Trek. I think that it's an interesting experiment. I mean, if you wanted, but the basic camera thing on Star Trek is more like Eye of God. It's less a camera motivated by something that goes bang over here,
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious, you've seen the first 2 episodes of Picard. What excites you? If there's like maybe 1 or 2 things that excite you the most about this season, of course, you worked on the show, so you're there. What are those things that excite you the most about this season of Picard?
Well, of course, I love the character interplay that's happening, and we're catching up with people in a fun way, I mean, when you go on the bridge and you see Sydney LaForge, right? Sydney,
Yep.
Yeah.
And she's like grinning there, and Riker goes right for her, sensitive point with that mischievous grin, which I'm telling you, that is Jonathan. What you see, and especially in Picard, is him. That's the way he acts all the time. He's fun. He's funny. He likes to tickle you and stuff like that, And that whole moment there are wonderful moments. I can't wait to see the rest of it, because the bit where they go in to see the captain of the Titan.
Yeah.
Captain Shaw. Yeah.
Oh, it's awesome. He is, and someone was I was just talking to a friend this morning about that scene being an amazing scene, amazing acting. He's incredible. He leaves a giant impression on you. He pulls off, some lines and stuff that if you don't hit him just right, him starting eating before they get there, they're not even late. And then he gives them the bottle of Chateau Picard, and he's like, that's terrific, and puts it over here and goes, I'm really more of this kind of guy.
Yeah.
And watch your mouth. That's an admiral and retired.
Yeah.
He's amazing. I just love, and they're really playing a game of chess at that time.
Yeah, he definitely pulled off the giant prick mentality of that
But you
character.
love him at the same time. I already love him. Even though he's an incredible prick.
Yeah.
Because it was such style and humor.
He has this like, I'm captain of the ship and I just don't care what you have to say.
Well, it's not unlike Ronnie Cox as Jellicoe.
We talked about that on our review.
That. Yeah.
Yep.
It's the same sort of thing, which is great for shaking things up. Jellicoe shook up the crew of the Enterprise D, who desperately needed it, just like the Borg shook them up.
Yeah.
They were pretty much tooling around the universe, the galaxy, pretty self-assured and smart, and we're better than we've got all this tech. And then the Borg come along and they're running for their lives.
Yeah.
And I think Picard even drops down on his knees and begs Q, you wanted to scare us, we're scared.
Yeah.
It's amazing, but things like that shake up the norm. And to have Picard and Riker, I mean, do you think that Picard, while he was a younger admiral and still part of the fleet, you think he would have stood for that? Oh my God. But in a way, Patrick is getting older. Everybody is, but he's at the leading edge of old age for the crew. and I felt that there was that I really enjoyed seeing was Jonathan being protective of Picard.
Yeah.
And I
Oh
thought that
yeah.
was really sweet, you know. There's a love there, that Picard never really was effusive on the old show. You know, he wouldn't hug people and stuff like that, you know, or he'd
Yeah.
be uncomfortable if someone hugged him, you know.
Yeah.
But as you get older, and it's happening to me too, you become more sensitive. You know, things make you cry that never did before. Well, I mean, with what happened to Dorothy last year, it's rewired my whole brain emotionally. I mean, I was never a crying person, and then as I was getting older, I found that, you know, like when Stan Lee died, I actually lost it a little bit because Stan kind of raised me when I was a little kid by reading stuff. Things on TV that I never would have believed in a million years, I break down and cry over the craziest shit now. As an example, did you see Wednesday, the show Wednesday?
I
I'm aware.
haven't yet. No.
Yeah, I
Oh,
haven't. I
I'm
know
aware
about
of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One
yeah,
of the
I've
best
seen it.
things Tim Burton has ever done, in my opinion. And
Interesting.
I don't want to ruin anything, but you know, the gal who plays Wednesday is so amazing, and she never even blinks once during the entire series. No blinking, not once.
Wow.
Wow.
And she's got no emotions, and she's can be cruel. But there's a scene where Thing is her henchman through the show, and she comes home and finds him nailed to a wall and like on the verge of death. And she rushes in to Fester, who tries to revive him with some electricity, you know.
Yeah.
And it looks like he's not going to make it, and she loses it a little bit. And I freaking totally lost it for the next couple of hours. I couldn't stop weeping because this idea of loss, you know. Orville had an amazing show in season 3 that was called Twice in a Lifetime. And it's where Malloy, I think his name was Malloy, the helmsman with the red hair and the beard, Scott Grimes, a wonderful character. And I think they stole a story from an old New Voyages that we did called In Harm's Way. But there's like an overload in engineering, and he's gone. They don't know where he is. Where did he go? And then they go to the bridge, and Isaac or somebody receives a distress call from him, and it's 200 years in the past. He got thrown into the past. So they go back to get him, and you catch up with him. He's like a pilot at in San Diego in contemporary times, flying a shuttle plane and stuff like that. And he looks out across the field. He sees Seth MacFarlane and his cute first officer in full uniform walking across and he's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And they come up, and he's like, I had given up. It turns out they arrived 10 years too late. He'd been there 10 years.
Oh,
wow.
And they say, well, you know, you've broken like 25 temporal, you know, rules, and you have to come back. And he's like, come home with me. Now, there was an episode in season 2 where Tuvok was on it, and they had artifacts from the 21st century, and one was a cell phone. They take it and they hook it up to the holodeck, and they recreate this woman's life who owned the phone. And he goes in and meets her, and you know, she's a singer at a cafe, and he actually does a little duet with her. He's really good, and he falls in love with her. But it's a holodeck, you know. Well, anyway, in this episode, he's in the 21st century, and he realizes they're not going to come for him, and he finds her, and he marries her, and they have a kid. And Ed and the first officer go to the home, and they see, holy crap. And what I really admired about it was that didn't matter to them, because messing with the timeline is really, really serious shit. And they're like, you have to come back with us. And he pulls out a weapon. He says, I'll fight you. I'll kill you. I'm not leaving here. And at that moment, I lost it. Because I had just gone through this loss of, you know, and that episode really, if you haven't seen it, it's a really terrific Star Trek episode.
Yeah, that kind of sounds a little bit like, not exactly, but a little bit like the, you know, famous, incredible episode from TNG, The Inner Light. right? Where Picard's zapped by the alien, right? And then he has that whole life he lives. It feels so real in a matter of moments, and then
I
he
put
wakes
that
up. And
makeup on him for that show.
did you
I-
really?
Yeah,
Oh,
I didn't
Wow.
design the makeup. Mike Westmore sculpted it, designed the whole thing. I just put it on and painted it. So like I was there with Patrick every single day, living with him, you know, and it really is the most wonderful show you can imagine.
It's funny you mentioned, Doug, about how different things affect you at different points in your life, right? Like when I was younger and I'd watch that episode, it's like, you know, this is okay. It's kind of boring to me. But now that I'm older and I've got a
Yeah,
family and I
yeah,
have kids, I can't watch that episode without getting
it's
emotional.
really hard, you know.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's really wonderful. And we were nominated, I think, for an Emmy for that, but I think,
Rightfully so.
yeah, we didn't get
yeah.
it. They didn't get it. You know,
Yeah.
the thing was, I think I went twice with Mike Westmore, and both times we didn't get it. But if you go to Mike Westmore's house, he's got a shelf with like 15 of them Emmys, you know.
Yeah.
It's like collecting action figures for him, you know.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I wanted to transition to something maybe a little bit funny, or I thought it was or Zach thinks it's funny for me.
I think it's hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah. I love the starships. I love the starship bridges, especially in you know in TNG and Enterprise and Voyager and DS9. I love the aesthetic of all of those bridges. And now when we were introduced to the new starships, like we saw the Titan, and I said Zach, everything's so dark on the new bridge, and everything's really glossy.
You know, the thing was that in the first episode of season 2, I thought the bridge was nicely lit.
Yeah.
And then for whatever reason, I don't know what the choice was, but the interiors are underlit.
Ah.
I don't know.
Why
if
do you
that
think
was,
that is, Doug? Why?
Well, you know,
I mean, I know it's a different era, right? But it's
all it takes is one person who's in charge to say, I want to underlight it so we're concentrating on the characters. If someone in power, and I don't know that's what happened, but it could happen that way, because to me it was very dark. I wanted to see more of that bridge. You know, I thought the bridge looked amazing in the first episode of season 2. It looked, I mean, you know, the scene where Allison Pill comes in and he's playing with the cigarette lighter.
Yeah.
I think he'd be. I'm sorry to have seen him go. I thought he was a terrific captain, but that scene on the bridge, it was just lit enough, and I love the shiny. Sorry, a lot of people carpet. Carpet's great, but it isn't as beautiful as, I mean, look, and then Floorgate, people ripping it because that's so dumb. They put floors down that you can't even run on because they're slick like ice. And I'm like, okay, first of all, why do you think that Starfleet engineers would put a deck on a starship that you can't run on? I mean, impossible, first of all. As far as being cinematic and beautiful, reflecting those lights and things, I love it. Now, I'm from New York City. So a lot of buildings have highly polished marble floors that are just like that.
Yeah.
The bridge of the Stargazer especially, and of course the Titan, is that it has a cosmopolitan look. It looks like 30 Rock to me, Rockefeller Center, you know, with expensive looking inlay, and it is the most gorgeous bridge you could imagine. I mean, I got to see it, you know, where you can see it. I wonder how Dave feels about that. I would have done it differently, you know, as far as the lighting of the ship. For me, it's kind of
it
frustrating.
definitely feels dark. Yeah,
it feels dark. And like I said, maybe somebody who was in charge said, could have been Patrick Stewart, it's not about the set, it's about us. Could be. I found that on the Elios as well. That central room that they were in is beautiful when you could see it.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to say about that. I was fine with the lighting in the first episode of season 2. I could see having the light down a little bit, like in the CIC on Galactica. You don't have it brightly lit because you want to be able to see the readouts better, you know.
Right.
And the reason why the other bridges were always so brightly lit was mostly because it made it easier. You're not spending a lot of time lighting, you know. You have a basic lighting setup on the bridge on Next Generation. It's always the same, pretty much. if you look at first season original series, they spent a lot more time lighting, and that the bridge was dark, and you'd have a band of light across William Shatner's eyes. That was
Yep.
amazing, you know. And then by the time we got to season 2, it was a standard lighting setup. There were no shadows anymore. It was all evenly lit. I loved the darker Enterprise. You know, even the corridors were darker with
Right.
swathes of color thrown against the wall. You know,
I will say with the darker sets on the new modern Trek, it seems to me visually, it kind of almost enhances all the LCAR displays a little bit more,
well,
right?
yeah,
So
absolutely.
that I like the pop of that in the darker sets.
And I got to say that you know, the LCARs, what fans are thrilled to see that back.
Yes.
You know, we believe in it. It looks like it's doing something important. It's considered. It's got style, and they moved it into the 21st century. You know, with the great big displays and curved panels that come down, and I mean, it's like absolutely. I mean, listen, I love all the other bridges, but especially if you're on stage there, you know, it's a piece of plexi with, you know, some blinky lights behind it and stuff like that. But when I was on this bridge, me, Mike, and Denise went up to see it. The sense that it was real, you know, I mean, even the panels that you operate with your hands, you know, those were like thin monitor material, and they were blinking, and it was just like, wow. They even had some of those see-through TV screens, which I saw a lot on the helicarrier in the Marvel movies. And I remember seeing those and going, well, who the hell wants a see-through screen? Now, that seems kind of dumb. And it just goes to show you that when I was on the bridge in person with it, for some crazy reason, your mind just shuts off everything behind the screen. I didn't expect it. It actually worked. But, you know, like Floorgate, or people losing their shit over a window on the bridge. You know, I mean, you can accept a guy who's lived 5 lifetimes as Michelangelo and, you know, Albert Einstein, but a window on the bridge is just going too damn far. That's beyond belief. You know?
Well, people get really wrapped around the axle on things, and people are purists, especially with the classic Trek series stuff. It kind of it further reinforces the idea of Galaxy Quest being one of the greatest Star Trek movies, right? Because the fandom is so well represented, where you get these kids coming up saying, you know, in this episode, in the schematics, we're looking at this, and this doesn't make sense. What do you think? You know, and
no, it's brilliant. Brilliant. I can't believe they never did another one or didn't make a TV series out of it. It's amazing.
Oh, nowadays anything's possible, Doug, you know, and you never know.
You never know.
I am curious, did Mike Okuda ever explain to you or anybody else, because I don't know that I've seen it, where he got his inspiration when he designed the LCAR system?
You know what? I don't know if I've ever asked Mike this, but there's like a Saab dealership in Studio City that has a sign, and then has like 3 of these things, just like LCARs coming down. Mike, see that going into work? Did that have any influence? You know, I mean, like, you never know. It's something I haven't asked him. I have to ask him. Like, for instance, the dedication plaque on the bridge was influenced by a dedication plaque that Mike saw in the Blues Brothers movie. Right? The Bluesmobile is about to drive over a bridge. The shot opens on the plaque and then pans up to the bridge. He saw that, and that influenced him to the plaque for the Enterprise. You know,
interesting.
Yeah, you never know where your inspiration is going to come from. Mike is a brilliant. And I think I made this point before, that if I ask you to draw the footprint for any other science fiction interface through history, I think there's only one that you could do that with, and that most people could do it with, and that would be Mike's LCARs.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you see it as screensavers on people's telephones, and you don't see that for anything else.
You see it as the background on like Apple Watches now and stuff. I mean, it's everywhere. Yeah.
The title sequence at the end of Picard, the credits,
all over.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was like a celebration of LCARs.
Yep.
That's because Terry loves it. He adores it.
Yeah, and that's what's so great when you get a showrunner who is a fan, right? It adds that extra element. If you're a fan, you have certain things that you really want to see. We talked about this during, I think, our Picard review and some other episodes, Chris, where we mentioned about how it over the years when they've introduced a new Star Trek series, it's like they've taken a piece from something familiar and brought it in. So with, Next Generation, they brought in DeForest Kelley and stuff to kind of pave the transition into TNG. With DS9, you saw Picard. With Voyager, you got the D Space Nine station. They've kind of done that along the way over the years. And I think it's great that you have Terry now bringing a lot of this classic stuff that we recognize and we see into Picard.
He's smart for doing that. The one thing I've noticed, I've watched that episode 3 times now, and it gets better upon repeated viewings because you notice more and more. That's pretty rare that I watch a TV show more than once. That first season, there's moments where you laugh, and there's moments where you touch, and then you see there's a number 47 over there, and all the little in gags that if you're part of it and you've loved it your whole life, you're in a special club where you can pick out those Easter eggs.
Yeah.
And they're not just stuff that's thrown in there to try to, show fans that Star Trek. It's like it's all clever. And Dave Blass, when it comes to the set dressing, he works with the set dresser and puts things in there that people are going to, on the 4th or 5th view, go, holy crap. And people love that. It makes you feel part of a club.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, you're missing part of the joy of what it is,
Yeah. Now there's been some rumors out there, and I don't know if either A, this or not, or B, if you're even allowed to say anything, but there has been rumors. And I think there was an interview that Terry did where he may have hinted, but do you think, in Doug Drexler's opinion, that season 3 of Picard really is the final run with this crew, or is it a possibility we may get more? I've heard rumors of, there may be a movie and there may be more. Do you think this is really it for this crew?
Well, I mean, for anything that is successful, there's a chance they're going to want to do it again. Whether Patrick wants to do it, he seems like a guy who's going to act until he can't anymore, which is great. I mean, Terry has said, I think in some of the interviews, that they left the door open. You got 7 and 9.
Yeah.
And her girlfriend, who I think is awesome. I think she's fantastic in the
Raffi. Yeah.
Yeah, I love Raffi. Too tall for me. But yeah, sure, it's always possible. So listen, if they're smart, they're going to ask Terry to come back and do, another show in this timeline. And if he does, he'll bring Dave Blass with him. And Dave Blass will want as many of us as he can get. It's very successful. The reactions to the ships have been great.
Yeah, maybe Terry becomes the Jon Favreau of the Star Trek universe.
Well, I mean, I always kind of thought he reminds me of Nicholas Meyer, and that he kind of just came in and turned Star Trek around. Lots of people love those other shows. I'm not criticizing those shows. It's amazing to me that there's so many different flavors of Star Trek now, and you're not going to not everyone likes chocolate or strawberry.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. I wish that people could communicate with each other without getting nasty. I see a lot of nastiness. The internet tends to be, when I was in my 20s, I worked at an architectural supply in Manhattan called Charette. And I was on the front counter for a while, and I'm like, well, you have a, engaging personality with people. Would you do telephone orders from the architectural houses around New York? And I was like, sure. And there were people who, if they had come into the store over the counter, would never talk to me like they talked to me on the telephone.
Mm.
There's something about an anonymity and a distance that brings out the worst in some people,
Yeah, the keyboard ninjas and keyboard warriors online who hide behind a fake screen name or something.
Well, there are some people who maybe, home life sucks and I don't have a girlfriend. And so you go online and you make yourself feel better by ripping somebody.
Yeah.
That makes you feel, like Dorothy used to say, there are people who cut your, cut your legs out from under you so they could be taller.
Mm.
You know,
Mhm.
that's people who do that. I don't really recognize that they're the ones, they're hurting themselves by being that way. You could have a much more vivid, enjoyable, fun life by, working with this person and talking instead of insulting. I see a lot of insult going on. It's
Yeah.
distressing, There's no excuse for that. But like I said, there are people out there who aren't having a good day, and then they feel better because they just beat somebody up online,
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, we need to change that as a culture for sure.
That's my public service announcement.
Yeah.
That's right. It's a good one too. It really is. And
is.
honestly, like as Star Trek fans, we shouldn't be like that to each other. I think that kind of goes against a lot of what Star Trek is all about.
Well, it does. It does. I mean, of course, you get a lot of people who love the show who think the idea of diversity is bad, and you see a lot of that happening these days. And Star Trek is all about diversity.
Mhm.
Yep.
And they like it because of the military aspect in the space battles. For some people, seeing the personal interplay between two characters is boring. Let's get on to the fight.
Mhm.
And that's what happens when something is as big as Star Trek is. The variety. And look, if Gene himself said diversity, infinite diversity, and infinite combinations, you've got to have the people who are cranky as a part of it. You can't not have them. They'll actually make you think a certain way, or I know that it can be difficult to deal with people like that. I never fight with anyone on my Facebook page. I have people trying to start a fight with me, but they can't.
Mhm.
Can't be done. That's the other thing, is to have enough faith in yourself to not be so offended when someone comes after you that you feel like you have to fire a shot back.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You don't have to. Don't. That's what they want. They're trying to provoke you. Don't take the bait. How did we start talking about this? Oh yeah.
But that was a beautiful thing to say.
Yeah.
I think people need to hear that message. I mean, that is a wonderful thing to say. So
They'd have a much better life.
yeah,
They'd have
yeah,
a much happier life.
yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
But yeah, Picard is freaking awesome. I'm so excited. It's just wonderful to see, to put to that formula, that recipe, those elements in Star Trek that we've been saying. This is what the fans really want out of their Star Trek. And once again, I got to say, I know a lot of people love a lot of people love Discovery. I've talked to a lot of people who love the other shows, but there's a certain strata of fan who hasn't been getting what it is they love, and Picard does that, and you feel like your old pals are back. It's not just bringing back the characters; it's what happens to them and how they're reacting, and there's a great moment on the bridge, where Picard is like, Seven, shouldn't you alert the engineering that we're going to be going to warp 9.995? And she's like, oh no, we don't have to do that. And he's like, a little embarrassed, And Riker says, you're going to be a captain before you know it.
Yep.
And Riker says, nice recovery, Admiral. And Will. We're gonna be seeing that on t-shirts.
Yep.
Shut it, Will.
Shut it, Will.
Yep.
I love that.
Yep.
That was good. That was good.
It's
That's
fun.
awesome. You had mentioned the ships before, and I don't know how much you're able to tell us, but we've seen the Titan. I think from what we know, we're going to see the Enterprise F. But
we see it in the trailer.
Yeah, we see it in the trailer, right? So any other don't know how much you're able to share with us, but any other cool starships that we're able to look forward
Almost
to?
everything.
Nice.
One of the great things about the opening on season 2, the end of season 1 had the notorious copy paste fleet. Remember
that was terrible.
Yeah.
You remember when there were only 12 like it in the fleet. Now there's 10 billion of just one class.
Yeah, that was terrible in my opinion. It felt lazy, honestly.
Oh well, yeah, fans were aghast. How that could even happen, I have no idea. What it takes is someone who's watching the pot going, oh, no one will notice. and they just don't know Star Trek fans.
Yes, if anybody will notice, it's Star Trek fans.
Well, it was the same damn ship. It didn't even look like a Starfleet ship. The texturing and the panels and stuff.
Yeah.
I've talked about this before, but when you're designing Star Trek, you're designing ships. There's two ways you could go. One way, it's do a science fiction design. Then the other way is the Star Trek way. It's not a science fiction design. It's a scientific extrapolation of where we might go. And what Matt Jeffries, I'll never forget when he said this to me, it stuck with me and Mike like crazy. He called it aircraft logic. Now, Matt was an engineer on a B-17 and Gene Roddenberry was a pilot on a B-17 during World War II. And these guys had a sense of aircraft logic. So that shows through on the ship. And to just do a science fiction design, where it's like, well, that looks crazy. That's and light it up, there's a spaceship. Star Trek is really like when a car company designs they have dream labs where they design futuristic cars that kind of extrapolate where we might be going. That's what a Star Trek Starfleet starship. It's okay to do a science fiction design for an alien vessel, where it's like, well, I can't figure it out. A Star Trek starship, when you get close to it and you see the panels and everything, you start to, every ship is a little puzzle. And you start taking the puzzle apart, going, okay, this panel comes off. And I know that we need to have a plasma accelerator here. This is where the plasma accelerators are that gives it a push before it goes to the nacelles. And people love taking it apart and figuring out how it all works. That's half the fun. If it's a science fiction design and you haven't thought out, I mean, like for instance, probably the NX was the most thought out ship of all of them. Mike Okuda and I sat for hours and just talked about what's here, what's going there. We need to cover it up here with this kind of a plate, and it was super thought out. I know the NX was kind of widely hated in the beginning, but almost everything is when a new show comes out. But then a couple of years after the show, I did a refit because I had always designed. When I was designing the NX, I was putting a secondary hull under it, saying just in case we want to add it, because the ship's going to evolve. It's like the first ship to go out there, they're going to come back, and there are going to be big changes after the first mission, big ones. And so I figured eventually we're going to want a dedicated engineering section. And once I did that, fans turned around. They completely went 180, decided that they liked it now, because it showed them that we were thinking about it all the time, that there was a plan. It wasn't just a science fiction design. The tadpole gets its legs,
Yeah.
And people really responded to that. Plus they also loved seeing a ship evolve before their eyes.
Well, that's one thing about Enterprise, excuse me, that I like so much, and why I like the NX-01 so much is because it shows on camera the level of thoughtfulness that you guys put into it. I mean, that ship really, in a sense, I'm glad you guys did that, because a ship kind of had to be thought out so much. It's so much closer to our time period. So if it's not thought out, people are going to go, I don't believe that. It's, it's only this far in the future and it's going to look like that. I don't buy it. But you can buy everything about the NX-01 Enterprise. You can buy like, okay, that makes sense. That looks like Trek, but it's close enough to us where I can understand why this is that way.
The only thing I would have done differently with the coloring of the hull is that I would have made it more like the original series ship.
It was like more of a single color.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of colors going on the original series ship. I mean, if you look at the ship,
but not the paneling as much as the NX, right?
Yeah, there are panels, but the idea, in my mind, is that as you get more futuristic, you get less happening. Matt Jeffries was like, well, why do we want panels on the outside? We want to be able to repair everything from inside, right?
Yeah.
I always thought that the original series ship had a porcelain kind of look. It was almost, like a sea creature, like a dolphin, when you get to having too many, hypernooks and mega crannies on a ship, I think it looks more primitive. I mean, I had a lot of people say that the NX looks more futuristic than the original series ship. So how can that be? And I'm like, really? It's got plates like an ironclad on it, and no, I mean the original, the next ship, the Constitution class, is sleek and smooth, and it's simplified because it's not as complex as it used to be. So it was always amazing to me. But then again, it's almost like complaining about the floor. You know, shiny floor on a ship. It's like stop. But I also understand that part of the allure of the show is uh, uh, knowing, having an opinion, such a strong opinion about something that the casual viewer would never even think about. Makes you feel part of a club, even if it is going against everyone else. And sometimes butting heads with people makes you feel good, if you win an argument. But so there you go. And that's
So
that I would have changed. That I would change. The other thing I would change is that I found that as soon as we got into Enterprise and even Voyager, the space shots started getting darker. The ship was always in a half light. And I think the thing you have to recognize is that the starship is a character. It's a star, one of the stars of the show.
yeah,
Got to have some shots where it's as evenly lit and bright as you used to see on the original series and on Next Generation, which they did because they wanted to cut stock footage together and have it all fit. But it also created this kind of look at the ship that was proud and wasn't scared and self-confident and out there like like the White Knight. I think that if you're getting into a danger zone, now you can become moody and dark. That's where you do that. But there's a business as usual, where the ship is lit and out there for everyone to see. I miss that. That's Doug's complaint for the day.
So speaking of the ships in Picard season 3, we get this new Neo Constitution class design, the USS Titan. Were you involved in the design of that ship?
Every ship went through me before it went to Vision.
Okay, so what drove that design? What made
Terry
or whoever it was say, "Hey, I want a Constitution class, but I want it to look different"?
Yes, Terry loves the original series ship, and he saw that Bill Krause had done a design that was very original series ship, motion picture Enterprise influenced, and he really liked it. Now, Bill Krause is a great designer, and as a matter of fact, I had been using him at doing pages in the Ships of the Line calendar for the last 7 years. I brought him in when not that many people knew about him, so I take credit for discovering him. But yeah, Terry wanted, and there's more than one reason to do this. Terry wanted something that felt more like the motion picture ship, and there's a lot of people who hate that and get angry. Most people love it, but there are people who get angry. I had one guy say, "Why would Starfleet bring out a side wheeler?" And I'm like, "Well, wait a minute. You saw Top Gun Maverick, right? Did you like it?" "Yeah." I go, "Me too. I thought it was fantastic." When they're going on their mission and they make contact with an early warning aircraft that has an AWAC antenna on the top.
Yeah.
It's like a picket plane that gives them the go ahead. It's got propellers on it. Is that a step backward? No, it isn't a step backward. It depends on what the mission envelope of the ship is.
Right.
That design, why does Tom Cruise fly a P-51 at the end of the movie? Because it's a fucking kick-ass plane that no other prop plane will ever equal.
Yeah.
And there's still things about it that quicken, Maverick's heart, that's not going backwards. It works better for its mission to be prop driven. The Titan, there was a while there where we thought it might be the Stargazer who was going to be in that role. But when you consider how muscular the Stargazer is compared to the Titan, it is not going to look right running like a scared rabbit from the Shrike. You will expect the Stargazer to turn around and give an account of itself. So you've got our people that we love on this kind of second, smaller, lower powered ship that really looks like it could get its ass kicked if it gets caught, So that is a good dramatic reason to have gone for the ship that, wasn't as muscular and powerful looking. But what happened basically was that there were any ship they would start off as sketches. Johnny used to do sketches. And then we would work out the design in CG with Dave Blass. And that it was a beautiful creative friendship, because John and I go way, 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 way back. And Dave Blass is just, he's like, just having a ball, like a kid in a candy store, loving working with us, And
I would be too.
Every ship, I built the approval model. I built the approval model for the Titan. I built the approval model for the Shrike. I built it for Stargazer. I built the approval model for the Helios, and things that are coming I can't talk about yet.
Yeah.
So what happened was that Dave put me in a position in the pipeline where I would smooth it out to be 100% Starfleet.
Yeah.
I wouldn't miss a thing. I've been studying it for so long. I've been practicing since I was 12 years old for this. And so Dave knew that he didn't have to sit on me. If he had just brought in another designer, he would have to be looking at everything and going, well, could you move this because the warp core egress shouldn't be in the primary hull. It's in the engineering hull. That really hobbles you on a show like this, where it's an entirely built world. The world building is amazing on Star Trek. And if you get someone like, no offense to, Star Wars geeks, but there are a lot of guys who come onto the shows and they want to do Star Wars. That to them is where it should be going, Star Wars. I'm like, please, let's not cross the streams, okay? Star Wars is Star Wars. I see your shirt.
Yeah, crossing the streams is bad.
Star Wars is Star Wars. Star Trek is its own thing.
Yeah.
Don't make it. And I got into this conversation with some of the guys who were Star Wars kids. And you're not going to win an argument, and you could discuss it. But I mean, basically, I think I ended up one conversation. They said, look, at the end of the day, I'm working for Gene Roddenberry, and I'm going to do what I think Gene wants.
Yeah.
And you need someone in this pipeline who obeys all those rules, knows the history. It's in my DNA. Nothing else as far as science fiction entertainment matters compared to me.
Yeah, and Terry could just say, hey, Doug, we need these ships or whatever, and he knows you can just go off and take it, and he doesn't have to really worry about it because it's going to be done the way it needs to be done for the fans.
And if he wanted it to have a certain feeling or something, he could talk to me about it, and I would understand how to do it in a Starfleet style.
Yep.
The Shrike gets a little more science fiction-y, because it's such an unusual ship, and oh my God, she's incredible.
Though their vessels kind of had a little bit of a Vorlon ship from Babylon 5 feel to them.
Well, there are certain things that always look scary and evil, and those are pronged, ships that look like a Triton and they'll get used over and over. I mean, I've heard people compare it to, our Cylon Raiders in the reboot Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
But those are just things that reoccur and reoccur and reoccur when you want to do something, nasty and pointy and evil looking, that people know right away that this ship is up to no good,
Yep.
I designed like 3 other versions of the Shrike myself. And that the one that we used was basically a John Eves design. And it looks like John Eves, But it's like I say, there's always going to be some, although I think that if there's some of the ones that I did that I don't think anyone would look at and compare it to something else, but it has to give a tone and a feeling that Terry's looking for that moment, and it's a beautiful ship, and I had a lot of fun building the model of it. I love the Helios. As a matter of fact, where is it? One of the guys on the show printed this from my approval file for me.
Beautiful.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
For those of you listening, if you're listening to this and not watching, jump over to YouTube to see the video version of this so you can see what Doug's showing us, these models.
See,
there's a Stargazer.
Also,
that's incredible.
He printed this from my approval model. It's like, holy cow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Amazing.
We could spend hours,
Yeah.
Doug, just talking to you about what's in your room. I
Yeah.
mean, my
Oh
God,
God.
there's so much great stuff there. Oh,
My Proteus,
yep.
people picked that
Wow.
Proteus out. That's one of the greatest science fiction designs of all time.
Wow.
Designed by uh, Harper Goff, who he was mostly a Disney guy. He designed the Nautilus on 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Huh.
Richard Fleischer was the director of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. He did a Fantastic Voyage. Fleischer did Fantastic Voyage and brought Harper Goff to design the Proteus submarine. And that's
Wow.
why it's so believable. It's
Yeah.
still has fanciful elements, but I mean, look at that Nautilus. Will that ever go out of style?
No.
Never. I
That's
got a
beautiful.
4-foot one. Steve Neal gave me a 4-foot model of the Nautilus.
Wow. Yeah, I think I've seen that on your social media. It's pretty fantastic.
I've got a big sea view too. I just love this stuff, and I actually worked on a reboot for Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea that now looks like it's not going to go anywhere. But I redesigned the sea. It's still the sea view. It's similar to Star Trek: The Motion Picture. It's still the Enterprise.
Yeah.
But it's like another step forward.
Gotcha.
Doug, of Starfleet vessels that you've worked on, that you've designed, is there a particular class that, for you personally, that you just feel you love, that you've got an affinity for, like any class of Starfleet vessel?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
The original.
Ah,
It has to be. I mean, have you seen Neil deGrasse Tyson at the Starship Smackdown? It's on YouTube.
Haven't seen it.
It was in New York City, and they didn't know he was in the room, and they were trying to decide what was the ship, and there was a shot on the screen, a beautiful shot of the Enterprise, and Neil deGrasse Tyson gets up, and everyone is like amazed, and he says, "When you look at these things, you have to think about what did they look like when they first came out." And he says, and when you consider that, and he points at the Enterprise, he says, that is the sexiest, the most gorgeous, the most seductive, and the audience is going crazy. But it's really true. I mean, there's not another. It's the most amazing science fiction spaceship ever designed, ever, and everything has come off of it. And that you can translate it so many different ways, and it still says Starfleet. The one place we got away from it a little bit, I wasn't really that happy about it at first, was the Defiant on Deep Space Nine. To me, it didn't look like a Starfleet vessel. It looked more like the Millennium Falcon in some ways, being that saucer, that it is. And Mike and I really made it Starfleet when we went in and we detailed it out with pennants and Starfleet style markings, and that pushed it over the top into Starfleet. But before then, it could have been on any science fiction show, and no one would have said Star Trek.
I was gonna say I do love the Defiant, so I will say to you and Mike, thank you for making it Starfleet, because I love the Defiant. She's one tough little ship. So
I love it too, but we resisted the direction it was going with our graphics and things like that, and there were so many crazy things about when they were first designing it. I mean, it changed their mind about how big it was. Like a couple of times in the very beginning. First it was only like maybe 3 school buses long, almost like a giant runabout. And I've seen people arguing. And also, there's scenes in there where visual effects cheated a little bit. Like having the Enterprise D docked on the inside of the pylons. It's too big. You can't.
I was gonna
But all it takes is somebody who's in charge to say, I need to see the Enterprise there. If you have to shrink it down a little bit, it's okay.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, D Space Nine certainly broke the mold in a lot of ways for Star Trek. I mean, you worked on it, so right? There's how many different things changed, from what we were used to in Star Trek when D Space Nine came along.
Yeah, I mean, I actually thought the show was going to be grittier than it was. I thought it was going to be pushed more towards a Blade Runner kind of feeling, that the promenade would be dark and almost like the city was in Picard, where we see Raffi, dark and dirty and scary.
Yeah. Which is interesting because DS9 is typically known as the grittier of the Star Trek series. So
yeah, I'm not sure why it's gritty. What makes it gritty? It's not like it's even lit dark,
I think it's just the idea that DS9 looks at the future less of a utopian society, and the fact that people are still dealing with a lot of stuff more than what maybe Gene's original vision was. I think that's maybe one of the reasons.
Well, it's not like you're not going to see that on a starship.
Right.
Starship was always going places where there were things happening. And, the only difference was that we weren't going there. It's just the way you're perceiving it. I mean,
Yeah.
They just happen to be coming to us, and there are a lot of people who really, really were upset about that. And I couldn't see, of course, when Mike brought me to DS9, I was like, oh, I want to do a starship. And I basically came up with the designs for all the layouts and ops, that kind of Cardassian interface.
Mm.
And I was so happy when the Defiant happened, because then we got a starship to play with.
Well, you were involved with the runabouts, right?
Yeah.
The design of those? Yeah. I thought the runabout
the
designs
design
were really awesome.
is Rick Sternbach.
Mm.
Sternbach did those designs. They only brought me in to do designs here and there because I was a graphic designer for Mike. Then once Herman realized that I could sketch and do modeling and stuff like that, he started giving me, like the Chaffee shuttle I did, the Romulan shuttle that lands at DS9.
Yep.
There's a number of things. See, in a way, that was kind of great because John Eaves was the lead illustrator at that time. And sometimes he'd get overloaded with stuff to do. And Herman would say, well, John's kind of hung up on this thing over here. How about you take a stab at this, And that's, to me, that's like the pressure is off. If I'm John, the pressure is on him. Mm-hmm. But if they bring in the graphic designer to design something, it's like I get to be the hero. It's not even my job, But when I came back for Enterprise, I was at Foundation Imaging where I was really learning CG. And when Enterprise came along, I think that John did like 30 different designs for the NX. And not that there was anything wrong with any of them, but it's like they want, for something like the hero ship, they want to see everything until there's no more time left. Because most of these people are not artists. And you hear this all the time, and it's almost it's a cliche now, where they'll say, well, I don't know what it is I want, but I'll know it when I see it. Mm-hmm. So keep doing it. And it got to the point where Herman had to shuttle John off to something else, like interiors and things. And Mike said, well, look, why don't you bring Doug back from Foundation Imaging? He's been learning CG, and you could actually build the ship in the art department, which was pretty much unheard of back then. I mean, it was like 1999 or something like that, and we were definitely ahead of the curve. I mean, at that time, it was only the people in the graphics department who had computers. Mm. Everybody else was working on a drafting table with a Mayline, rulers and pencils and templates and compasses, and we were the weird ones working on the computers. When I went with Gary and I did visual effects for like 11 years, and then when Gary died, I didn't want to do visual effects anymore. He was the guy who made it worthwhile because it was fun. I didn't want to do it anymore. I went back to art department, the more civilized art department. I mean, you go home at a normal time pretty much in the art department. Visual effects, you might be up for days trying to get stuff done. So by the time I got back to art department, there was no such thing as paper anymore, boy. Everybody, even the set designers, they were building everything in like SketchUp and, drafting programs in the computer. No more, drafting tables. Amazing how it changed in just like a decade. But we were definitely ahead of the curve.
Yeah. I'd like to kind of shift gears as we get towards the end of our time with you, Doug, and talk a little bit about your memoir book you're writing. I know you've put in some excerpts on social media, and you've talked about it on social media. And where are you at with that? And do you have an idea as to when it might come out?
Well, I tell you, it's just like pouring out. It's the easiest thing I ever wrote. I mean, I am a pretty good writer. I do have a style and that people are engaged by, I've discovered. And when you're young and you want to write, you're like, well, what do I write about? I don't really have any experiences yet. And then when you get to the point where I am, 70 in next month.
Happy birthday soon to be, by the
Happy
way.
birthday, yeah.
It's a big, that's a big milestone, 70.
Oh yeah, I don't feel it. Um, you, especially, I mean, I've had a 42-year career now across so many different things, you know. I've got stories now. I've got stories, stuff you just wouldn't believe, stuff I go back and read again and go, what?
Mhm.
Really? Oh yeah, you were there. And you know, I'm not writing a, you know, like I said before, it's not like I'm George Washington and you need to know everything about how I lived and everything. I'm just hitting the high points and the things that made a difference and brought me to where I am. And it's more anecdotal than anything. And of course, you know, I had like 12 years of career before I got to Star Trek, you know, so I've got crazy experience with directors like, you know, um, Michael Cimino and Warren Beatty and Mike Nichols
Mhm.
and, you know, and worked with some crazy actors, you know, and some big name actors, especially on Dick Tracy. It was like everyone in Hollywood, probably,
Yeah.
you know, and they were all, let me tell you something, they were working for scale as a favor to Warren.
Mm.
Everybody was working for scale.
Interesting. I was
Dustin
going to say, how
Hoffman.
did they afford all those big names that they had in there?
Yeah.
No, they were all working as a favor.
Mm.
You know, Jimmy Caan and Al Pacino and, you know, and actors you could only dream of working with. And Warren wanted us because we were, one thing was that we were hungry. You know, I mean, if you brought in Rick Baker or one of those guys, he's not hungry. And he's probably going to take $1 million just for himself right off the top.
Yeah.
You know, Warren saw us as hungry and probably more malleable, I guess. But he told us all the way through, he'd see a makeup and he'd go, you guys are getting the statue, he would say. And we did. My partner and I were sitting in our lab in Brooklyn reading Variety. And I said, look at this, they're going to do Dick Tracy. And we both looked at each other and said, whoever gets that job is going to win an Academy Award, because we knew the potential of all the faces.
Yeah.
I grew up reading Dick Tracy in Sunday papers, you know. And that really, getting that job changed my whole life. You know, that's how I met Dorothy. That's how I got onto Star Trek. You know, it was absolutely amazing. Amazing.
How many pages are you up to now for writing this memoir?
Well, about 300 pages so far. And I feel like I'm just getting started in some respects. And I'm figuring I'm probably going to end up with like 700 pages.
Mhm.
I can't have a 700-page biography because I'm not Abraham Lincoln, okay? So I have to go through and then cut it down to the very, very best of the best, the best of the best, sir. You know?
With honors.
And but I have to say, I mean, you know, many people know what I went through with Dorothy's death.
Yep.
And I'm still crushed by it. It's crushing. We had the most beautiful relationship you could possibly imagine. We've never, in 32 years, never had a fight. I was never so well loved and taken care of in my life ever, you know. So, and motion picture was really great about it. They had therapists coming to talk to me and stuff, and it just didn't do anything for me. I mean, they don't know who I am, you know, and some of them are like 25 years old, you know, what are they going to tell me about life? But I found that the writing helped me more than anything. Writing about her, writing about our experiences. I wrote some intimate stuff too. I wrote one story about the night we met each other and how we ended up in each other's arms. And it was a kind of story I could not put on Facebook because they would have probably shut down my page. But it's some pretty hot stuff. Dorothy was gorgeous, man. I mean, when I first met her, I treated her like my sister because she's not going to want a guy like me. You know, I'm 5'7". You know.
Oh, how you were wrong, I guess. Huh?
Yeah, was I ever? I mean, but we were like best pals for almost 3 years before I started noticing her. You know, we weren't working together anymore, and we started going to the same gym, Vince's gym. Look it up on the internet, the Dungeon. And I didn't think she would last 2 weeks, and she took over practically, and she built like an amazing figure. And I started noticing her. I mean, she was pretty before, but now she was like a warrior princess. you know.
Mhm.
But the writing was my point. The writing has helped me more than a truckload of therapists. And I noticed that when I was writing some of that stuff on Facebook, and I really laid my soul bare
Yeah.
on Facebook about what was going on, and people were a lot of people were very touched. I mean, a lot of people have known me as part of their life through Star Trek for a long time, and they knew Dorothy, and they felt the pain, they felt the hurt, and it was also unusual to have a guy being that open. I've
Mhm.
heard that from so many people. Usually, you're supposed to, keep it inside and not talk about it, but I wasn't that way. And I actually reveled in writing about her and us and, life and stuff like that.
Well, I never got to meet Dorothy, but through the writings you put on social media, I felt like I've known her for a long time, and I really appreciated you kind of bearing your soul there. It was very refreshing to see somebody who was willing to put themselves out there like that.
I think it helped a lot of people. I had people write me and say that you helped me deal with some loss that I had in my life.
Mhm.
It's wonderful to hear that. Um, but the things that the fans gave back as well. The fans, I mean, I call them the fans, but I'm one of them. I'm a fan too. We're the same community.
Yeah.
Uh, a lot of people are amazed that I answer. No one answers me. You're the only guy. And uh, I'm like, well, because I'm one of you. I don't see myself as separate. Um, but they were so supportive. They helped me so much. And then when we had the moonshot thing, remember that? Celestis that does they send Roddenberry's ashes into deep space and stuff like that.
Yep.
One of the guys who represented them said, that'd be a great thing to do for Dorothy. And I said, yeah, I bet that's expensive. And he said, well, it's like about 12 grand. And I'm thinking, if I asked Dorothy, are you crazy? 12 grand. But it just seemed like he said, you could do a GoFundMe.
Mhm.
And I'm like, no, I can't ask the fans for money. I did that once before on a fan film, like Space Command or something, and that totally fell apart. We had a parting of the ways, and they raised a huge amount of money on the work that I did a lot of work to promote it. After that, I swore I would never ask the fans for money again, and I said I can't do it. Um, I said, but you know what? You can. Why don't you start a Facebook page for Dorothy and raise the money? I'll back it up. And they raised the money like in 24 hours.
Mhm.
Remember that.
Yeah, I didn't go for the deep space. I want to know where she is.
Mm.
It's like a quarter of a cup of her or something like that. It's going to be a moon mission.
Mhm.
Think about how that's going to intrinsically change the meaning of the moon.
Yeah.
Mhm.
When I look at the moon, that's crazy. But I mean, when the fans did that, I cried.
Mhm.
Mike sent a picture of me and Dorothy to NASA, who beamed it up to the International Space Station. And one of the astronauts put it on an iPad and floated it in the cupola, where the windows are, and you can see
Yep.
the Earth behind. Me and Dorothy floating in space on the ISS with the Earth behind us. I received that on my phone while I was out having lunch with somebody, and I lost it when I saw that. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I cried. I've done a lot of crying.
Yeah. I remember when you posted that on social media. That was a really amazing picture to see.
Amazing,
Yeah.
amazing. Oh my
It really
God.
was.
But
I was just gonna say, Doug, for those who are watching on YouTube, would you mind showing us that tattoo? Some of you who do follow
oh,
Doug on here might have seen the tattoo he had in Dorothy's honor, and so I think it's really great. You got the rose on there, and you got her signature, and that's just so fantastic.
rose on my arm.
Yep.
Yeah.
The rose. It was about 4 weeks after she died, and I came out of my trance long enough to notice that all her rose bushes were dying. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh my God, I can't allow this. And I started watering it. And in an impossibly short period of time, I was walking across the yard and I noticed a single pop of color. And I went over and it was a single perfect rose. There was not another one there, and there wasn't another one for months after that. And when I saw that, I felt like it was a gift from Dorothy, and I cried. Big crybaby that I am lately. I had a crazy experience just a few days later. A producer friend of mine who had done a lot of reality shows said it was checking on me every week, and he said, Doug, I think you should talk to a medium.
Mhm.
I knew this guy as someone whose feet were really on the ground, and I was surprised. And because of him, he said, there's one guy that we had, I believe he's legitimate. And so I got his number and I made an appointment to have a session over the phone. And I'm thinking, like I told the Okudas, and they kind of rolled their eyes. And I said, look, if he could hit me with one thing that he couldn't possibly know, it could change how I feel about everything, whether there's an afterlife or. So we had this meeting, and he didn't hit me with one thing. He hit me with like a half a dozen things that were like, that's impossible. You can't possibly know this. And one of the last things he said to me was, he had my mother there. He had Dorothy there. One of the last things he said to me was, she's handing you a single red rose, and she says, you'll understand.
Mm.
And I was like, my jaw just like dropped, because this only happened a couple of days before. A single red rose on top of the other things he hit me with about my mother. And it was like, there's no way. Some things he could have found out doing a deep dive on the internet, but there was stuff that there was no way he could have known about. But yeah, now I'm blathering away here.
No,
Yeah.
that was beautiful. It was really beautiful. Thank you.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Doug. I could sit here and ask you questions for hours about stuff. There's so much information you have, and we really appreciate you coming back on with us. We had an absolute pleasure the first time you were with us. We've had an absolute pleasure again, and we'd obviously love to have you on again at some point down the road.
Of course. And like I said, it all comes down to that we're all fans, I'm not just some guy who works in television and movies. I started as a Star Trek fan, and it's propelled me through my career. And that one of the most amazing things is that I could go to a Star Trek convention or just meet people on the street. And once we establish that we're fans of the show, it's like we've known each other forever. And just like chat, talk. I could go all day and all night. I don't understand it. Why is that?
There's very few communities out there, I feel like, that are like the Star Trek community.
There are some things that are similar,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know that there's anything quite like this.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we appreciate your time as always, Doug. Thank you so much for coming on here and sharing more with us. Thank you for all your work on Star Trek Picard.
Keep
the
watching,
rest of
I'm telling you, just wait.
Oh, we will.
If the rest of the series is half as good as the first episode, we're absolutely in for a
I've been
treat.
told that the first episode is the worst one.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Okay.
We have a lot more to look forward to then, for sure. I remember, I think it was the last time you were on with us, you said season 3 of Picard was going to be like a love letter to TNG and the fans, and you're not wrong yet. So that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's amazing.
It is. So for those of you out there listening or watching on YouTube, be sure to go on and follow Doug on social media. Be sure to check out his work. It's really incredible. It's why he's won the awards he's won for a reason. And again, Doug, thank you so much for your time and being on with us. And we look forward to chatting with you down the road.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Well, and thanks everybody for listening. And as always, be sure to, again, follow us on social media for all the latest content. We look forward to hearing from you soon, and we'll catch you next time right here on the Random Redshirt Podcast.